Now that we have all our prerequisites done, let's try to install a simple lab in an automated fashion. So for that, let's go to the C lab sources folder, and then let's look at some sample scripts here. Again, there are different complex scripts you can use, but I would always start with the introduction and go through these scripts first before you start going to other folders. So I'm going to start this script, and I'm going to open with Notepad just to copy and paste. Again, remember, whenever you open those files, you need to open it as administrator for it to work. So I'm just going to grab it, paste it here in the script, and let's give it an easy name, save as, and then I'm going to say single mission. Again, we will gradually start from the very basics, and at the end of the course, you will build a very complex lab with a lot of tools installed. So let's look at this line by line. Again, like I said before, do not get too much bogged down on the commands because that is the beauty of automation. So once you build something which works for you, you don't have to remember these things. You can just run the script and it'll work for you. So for automated labs to work, you need to define a lab, right? And this can be any lab. So I'm going to say, instead of Win10, I'm going to say lab 1. And for the next one, we'll use lab 2 and so forth. And we have to specify the virtual machine as Hyper-V, the virtualization engine. So automated labs also support Azure, but I will not be covering that in this course. But for this course, we'll be using only Hyper-V. So this is the first line you will pretty much see in all the scripts. In the second line over here, you're going to define lab, right? So like what's the name of the virtual machine you want to create, how much memory you want to give, and what is the operating systems you want to create. Again, there are more options. If you give a hyphen, you can see all the different options that are available. There is plenty of options for you to play with. Again, let's start it simple, and once you get comfortable, you can easily you can make it more you can enable more features to create a mission. So based on the last lab, we don't have a Windows 10 Pro, right? All we have is a Windows Server 2019. So let's grab the whole thing from here and copy it to the buffer and then paste it here. Again, if you have Windows 10 ISO file, feel free to try that. But again, based on a copy the name from what you see over here. And the next step is to add a line called install lab. So this is the step where it actually installs your operating systems. So if you look here, you're not specifying what's the name of the virtual switch you want to create. So automated labs, it creates some virtual switches by default, and it gives it some random names. But you can give those options here, which again we will see in later modules. So I'm going to just run the scripts and see what happens. Again, this is installing a whole Windows operating system, so it is going to take some time. So I'm going to pause the video after a certain stage, and I'll get back to you once the lab is complete. You can imagine how much work it is to install any Windows operating systems. You have to go through a bunch of steps, and I mean, I'm tired of clicking next, and I mean picking like the various options for the Windows machines. But here, I mean, automated labs, all you're telling is what operating systems you want, how much memory you want to give, and then it is installing it for you. And also, if you have more memory on your host machine, I would give at least 2 or even 4 will be even better. So you can see the various steps that it's trying to perform here. It is creating a network called lab1. So if you go back to the hypervisor here, remember I showed you the virtual switch manager. So it should create hopefully that lab1 switch here. So let's see if it created or not. So it is also based on, if you have different hard drives, it tries to see the speed of which is most fastest, and it will try to install the VMs in that drive. So I don't believe it installed the virtual switch just yet, but let's check one more time. So I'm not going to let you watch this whole process. Let me pause the video for a second, and I will get back to you once the installation done. Again, if I do any other steps, I will let you know. Yeah, I will not do anything extra other than what you already saw here. So Automated Labs is prompting for relaxing some more remoting features. I just wanted to show that while it's doing the automation here. So I'm just going to say OK for this one. And it needs to enable CRED SSP. Again, don't get too bogged down on these terminologies. If you're interested, I will talk about it towards the end of the course. Again, I'm going to say OK for that as well. And then so it is saying like it needs to add it to the trusted host list. I'm going to say OK for that too. And yes for that too. So again, say yes. So I'm going to agree to everything it says. Again, most of the time I do these labs in isolated test machines. So make sure you don't have any other production machines or sensitive machines in the same network. So lab is started and it's currently deploying this Windows 2019. Okay, so I will pause for a bit and I'll get back to you as soon as it is done creating this lab. So the script just got done, and the virtual machine is installed without us touching any of the steps manually here. So let's scroll back and see what all did AutomatedLab did for us. So by the way, I may refer Automated Labs as AL just for short form sometimes, so just don't get alarmed with that. So it did create a virtual machine called client1, which is expected which is what the name we gave here. It did create a network or a virtual switch called lab1. So let's check that. So if you go to the virtual switch manager here, there is a switch which AL created for us, which is of type internal. And it's also creating with an address space of 192 or 168.11 address space. So if you have multiple virtual machines, Automated Labs will give an IP address based on this address range. So it is saying like all the Hyper-V machines will be created in D drive. So in your case, if you don't have a D drive, everything will be created in C. So in my case, I have a couple of drives. So let me go check at the D drive. So there is a folder, Automated Lab. So this is also pretty cool. So Automated Lab, what it does is it does create a base image, and so whenever you create any virtual labs based on the same ISO image or like Windows 2019, it will use this as a base. So only the first time it is going to take a long time for you to create a lab. So anytime after that, if you create the same virtual machine, it shouldn't take that long. and this is where all the files are located. So you can see all the different files for that virtual machine here. So what else? It is also saying that you can easily, it added a host entry so that you can easily ping client 1. I'm not sure if it lets you ping here. Yeah, it is letting you ping, and it gave the IP address of 11.3. The reason that you're able to ping is because it added a host entry to your local host machine. And it also says that you can remove the lab by using this command remove lab. So anyway, so the good thing is we have a virtual machine without any manual steps, which is always a painful task in Windows. So let's see what it looks like. So one thing which again we can specify the passwords in the script when we create it, but by default it is going to use a password called SUMPASS1. Again, I will type it up here in Notepad for you. So this is the default password AL uses for our default use cases. So, I mean, this is awesome. I mean, this is when I saw this VMs created without me doing anything, that just completely blew my mind, right? So again, so this one is not connected to the internet. But you can have multiple VMs, and then you can have each of those machines talk to each other. You can also make changes manually. So for example, if you want to increase the RAM, you can go here, and then you can change the RAM to like 2 gigs or 4 gig RAM, depending upon how much you have in your host machine. So what else? I'm going to close this, and I'm going to do I'm going to show you flexibility here. So now that you have one virtual machine, so I'm going to copy this line, and then paste it again. I'm going to call it client 2. I'm going to give it 2 GB, and it's again based on the same operating system. So I'm going to run it again. AL is pretty smart in the sense that it knows that it already created this client 1, so it will just skip that line, and it will continue and create the second virtual machine for you. So again, it is going to give a random IP address. Most of the time it goes in sequence. So I'm guessing last time it was 192.168.11.3. So I'm guessing this could be a .4. Again, so this, since we already have the image created, this lab should be pretty fast compared to the initial lab we created. But I'll just pause this one more time, and then I will continue as soon as this is done. So the lab is just completed. So let's scroll back again and see what all changes it did. So it was trying to create a network called lab1. Since it was already there, I didn't create it. So it says already exists. And also, like I said before, since the client 1 is already there, it is not creating it again. So it went ahead and created client 2 with the same specs. So if you go back to the hypervisor here, you have 2 client machines, and with a different IP address. So let's log on with the same password, which is SUMPASS1, and then it has an IP address of 11.4. So for now, if I go back and let me open a command prompt. It takes a bit to load it for the first time. Yeah, I'm just opening PowerShell, and let's say if I ping so I'm able to ping the other system which we created, which is client 1. So I hope you are excited as I am. This is amazing because if you look at the script, you can copy this line 10 times, and you can just run the script, just take a coffee and then come back, and you'll have 10 VMs to work with and create your labs. So again, I will leave you here, and in the next lecture we will try to make these systems talk to the intranet. Okay, see you soon.